Chapter 13. Leo Matien opened the door of his apartment. He was barefoot. A napkin was tied around his neck, and a bit of carrot and a crumb of bread were caught in his mustache. The smell of mutton stew wafted out into the cold, dark street.
"It is Peter Augustus Duchesne," said Leo Matien, "and he has his hat on his head, and he is here, on the ground, instead of up there acting like the cuckoo bird on a clock."
"I'm very sorry to disturb you at your dinner," said Peter, "but I must see the magician."
"You must do what?"
"I need for you to take me to the prison so that I may see the magician. You are a policeman, an officer of the law. Surely they will let you inside."
"Who is it?"
said Gloria Matien. She came to the door and stood beside her husband. "Good evening, Madame Matien," said Peter. He took off his hat and bowed to Gloria.
"And a good evening to you,"
said Gloria. "Yes, good evening," said Peter. He put his hat back on his head. "I am sorry to disturb you at your dinner, but I need to go to the prison immediately."
"He needs to go to the prison?"
said Gloria Matien to her husband.
"Is that what he said? Have mercy, what kind of request is that for a child to make? And look at him, please. He is so skinny that you can see right through him. He is... what's the word?"
"Transparent?" said Leo.
"Yes," said Gloria, "exactly that, transparent. Does that old man not feed you? In addition to no love, is there no food in the attic room?"
"There is bread," said Peter, "and also fish, but they are very small fish, exceedingly small."
"You must come inside," said Gloria. "That is a thing which you must immediately do. You must come inside."
"But," said Peter. "Come inside," said Leo. "We will talk."
"Come inside," said Gloria Matien. "First we will eat, and then we will talk."
There was in the apartment of Leo and Gloria Matien a wonderful fire blazing, and a kitchen table was pulled up close to the hearth.
"Sit,"
said Leo. Peter sat. His legs shaking and his heart was beating fast as if he were still running. "I do not think that there is much time," he said. "I do not think there is enough time, truly, to dine." Gloria put a bowl of stew in Peter's hands.
"Eat,"
she said. Peter raised the spoon to his lips. He chewed, he swallowed. It had been a long time since he had eaten anything besides tiny fish and old bread. So when Peter had a first bite of stew, it overwhelmed him. The warmth of it, the richness of it, knocked him backwards. It was as if a gentle hand had pushed him when he was not expecting it. Everything he had lost came flooding back. The garden, his father, his mother, his sister, the promises that he had made and could not keep.
"What's this?" said Gloria. "The boy is crying."
"Shh," said Leo. He put his hand on Peter's shoulders. "Shh, don't worry, Peter. Everything will be good. All will be well. We will do together whatever it is that needs to be done. But for now, you must eat." Peter nodded. He raised his spoon again. He chewed and swallowed, and again he was overcome. He could not help it. He could not stop the tears. They flowed down his cheeks and into the bowl. "It is very good stew, Madame Matien," he managed to say. "Truly, it is an excellent stew." His hands shook. The spoon rattled against the bowl.
"Here now,"
said Gloria.
"Don't spill it."
"It is gone," thought Peter. "All of it is gone, and there is no way to get it back." "Eat," said Leo Matien again, very gently. Peter looked the truth of what he had lost full in the face, and then he ate. When Peter was done, Leo Matien sat down on the chair beside him and said, "Now you must tell us everything." "Everything?" said Peter. "Yes, everything," said Leo Matien. He leaned back in the chair. "Begin at the beginning." Peter started at the garden. He began his story with his father throwing him high in the air and catching him. He began with his mother dressed in all white, laughing, her stomach round like a balloon. "The sky was purple," said Peter. "The lamps were lit." "Yes," said Leo Matien. "I can see it all very well. And where is your father now?" "He was a soldier," said Peter, "and he died on the battlefield. Vilna Lutz served with him and fought beside him. He was his friend. He came to our house to deliver the news of my father's death."
"Vilna Lutz?"
said Gloria Matien, and it was as if she was uttering a curse. "When my mother heard the news, the baby started to come. My sister, Adele." Peter stopped. He took a deep breath. "My sister was born, and my mother died. Before she died, I promised her I would always watch out for the baby, but then I could not, because the midwife took the baby away, and Vilna Lutz took me with him to teach me how to be a soldier." Gloria Matien stood.
"Vilna Lutz!"
she shouted. She shook a fist at the ceiling.
"I will have a word with him."
"Sit, please," said Leo Matien. Gloria sat. "And what became of your sister?" said Leo to Peter. Vilna told me that she died. He said that she was born dead, stillborn. Gloria Matienne gasped. He said that, but he lied. He lied. He has admitted that he lied. She is not dead. Vilna, said Gloria Matienne again. She leaped to her feet and shook her fist at the ceiling. First, the fortune teller told me that she lives, and then my own dream told me the same, and the fortune teller told me also that an elephant would lead me to her. But today, this afternoon, I saw the elephant, Leo Matienne, and I know that she will die if she cannot go home. She must go home. The magician must return her there. Leo crossed his arms and tipped his chair back on 2 legs.
Don't do that,
said Gloria. She sat down again.
That is very bad for the chair.
Leo Matienne came slowly forward until all 4 legs were again resting on the floor. He smiled. What if? He said.
Oh, don't start, said his wife. Please don't start.
Why not? And somewhere high above them there was a muffled thump, the sound of Vilna beating his wooden foot on the floor, demanding something. Could it be? Said Leo. Yes, said Peter. He did not look up at the ceiling. He kept his eyes on Leo Matienne. What if? He said to the policeman. Why not? Said Leo back to him. He smiled.
Enough,
said Gloria. No, said Leo Matienne. Not enough. Never enough. We must ask ourselves these questions as often as we dare. How will the world change if we do not question it?
The world cannot be changed, said Gloria. The world is what the world is and has forever been.
No, said Leo Matienne softly. I will not believe that, for here is Peter standing before us asking us to make something different. Thump, thump, thump went Vilna foot above them. Gloria looked up at the ceiling. She looked over at Peter. She shook her head. She nodded her head, and then, slowly, she nodded it again. Yes, said Leo Matienne. Yes, that is what I thought too. He stood and took the napkin from his neck. It is time for us to go to the prison. He put his arms around his wife and pulled her close. He rested her cheek against his for a moment, and then she pulled away from Leo and turned to Peter.
You,
she said. Yes, said Peter. He stood straight before her like a soldier awaiting inspection, and so he was not prepared at all when she grabbed him and pulled him close, enveloping him in the smell of mutton stew and starch and green grass. Oh, to be held. He had forgotten entirely what it meant. He wrapped his arms around Gloria Matienne and began again to cry.
There,
she said. She rocked him back and forth.
There, you foolish, beautiful boy who wants to change the world. There, there. And who could keep from loving you? Who could keep from loving a boy so brave and true?
Chapter 14. In the house of the Countess in the dark and empty ballroom, the elephant slept. She dreamed she was walking across a wide savanna. The sky above her was a brilliant blue. She could feel the warmth of the sun on her back. In her dream, the boy appeared a long way ahead of her and stood waiting. When she at last drew close to him, he looked at her as he had done that afternoon. But he said nothing. He simply fell into step beside her. They walked together through the tall grass, and the elephant, in her dream, thought that this was a wonderful thing, to walk beside a boy. She felt that things were exactly as they should be. She was happy. And the sun was so warm. In the prison, the magician lay upon his cloak, staring up at the window, hoping for a cloud to break and a bright star to appear. He could no longer sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the elephant crashing through the ceiling of the opera house and landing on top of Madame Lavant. The image bedeviled him to the point where he could get no respite. All he could think was the elephant and the amazing, stupendous magic he had performed to call her forth. At the same time, he was achingly, devastatingly lonely, and he wished with the whole of his heart to see a face, any human face. He would have been delighted, pleased beyond measure, to gaze upon even the accusatory, the pleading countenance of the crippled Madame Lavant. If she appeared beside him right now, he would show her the star that was sometimes visible through his window. He would say to her, "Have you, in truth, ever seen something so heartbreakingly lovely? What are we to make of a world where stars shine bright in the midst of so much darkness and gloom?
All of which is to say that the magician was awake that night when the outer door of the prison clanged open and 2 sets of footsteps sounded down the long hallway. He stood. He put on his cloak. He looked out through the bars of his cell and saw the light of a lantern shining in the darkened hallway. His heart leaped inside him. He called out to the approaching light. And what did the magician say? You know full well the words he spoke. "I intended only lilies," shouted the magician. "Please, I intended only a bouquet of lilies." In the light of the lantern that Leo Mathienne held aloft, Peter could see the magician all too clearly. His beard was long and wild, his fingernails ragged and torn, his cloak covered in a patina of mold. His eyes burned bright, but they were the eyes of a cornered animal, desperate and pleading and angry all at once. Peter's heart sank. This man did not look as if he could perform any magic at all, much less a huge magic, the tremendous magic of sending an elephant home. "Who are you?" said the magician. "Who has sent you?"
"My name is Leo Mathienne," said Leo, "and this is Peter Augustus Duchesne, and we have come to speak to you about the elephant."
Of course, said the magician. "What else would you speak to me but the elephant?"
"We want you to do the magic that will send her home," said Peter. The magician laughed. It was not a pleasant sound.
"Send her home, you say? And why would I do that?"
"Because she will die if you do not," said Peter.
"And why would she die?"
"She is homesick," said Peter. "I think that she's heartbroken."
"A homesick, broken-hearted magic trick," said the magician.
He laughed again.
He shook his head. "It was all so magnificent when it happened. It was all so wondrous when it occurred. You would not believe it, truly you would not. And look what it has come to."
Somewhere in the prison, someone was crying. It was the kind of strangled weeping that Vilnelut sometimes gave himself over to when he thought that Peter was asleep. The world is broken, thought Peter, and it cannot be fixed. The magician kept still, his head pressed against the bars. The sound of the prisoner weeping rose and fell, and then Peter saw that the magician was crying too. Great, lonely tears rolled down his face and disappeared into his beard. Maybe it was not too late after all. "I believe," said Peter very quietly.
"What do you believe?"
said the magician without moving. "I believe that things can still be set right. I believe that you can perform the necessary magic." The magician shook his head.
"No,"
he said the word quietly as if he were speaking it to himself.
"No."
There was a long silence. Leo Mathienne cleared his throat once, and then again. He opened his mouth and spoke 2 simple words. He said, "What if?" The magician raised his head. Then he looked at the policeman.
"What if?" he said. "What if is a question that belongs to magic."
"Yes," said Leo, "to magic and also to the world in which we live every day. So, what if? What if you merely tried?"
"I tried already," said the magician. "I tried and failed to send her back."
The tears continued to roll down his face.
"You must understand, I did not want to send her back. She was the finest magic I had ever performed."
"To return her to where she belongs would be a fine magic too," said Leo Mathienne.
"So you say," said the magician.
He looked at Leo Mathienne, and then at Peter, and then back at Leo Mathienne. "Please," said Peter. The light from the lantern in Leo's outstretched arm flickered, and the magician's shadow, cast on the wall behind him, reared back suddenly and then grew larger. The shadow stood apart from him as if it were another creature entirely, watching over him, waiting anxiously, along with Peter, for the magician to decide what seemed to be the fate of the entire universe.
"Very well," said the magician at last. "I will try, but I will need 2 things. I will need the elephant, for I cannot make her disappear without her being present, and I will need Madame Lavon. You must bring both the elephant and the noblewoman here to me."
"But that is impossible," said Peter.
"Magic is always impossible," said the magician. "It begins with the impossible and ends with the impossible and is impossible in between. That is why it is magic."